Hi, I'm Cheryl Bruner. I'm the president of the board of directors for the Williams Community Forest Project, and I'm also on the board of directors for the Williams Creek Watershed Council. So I lived in Boulder, Colorado before moving to Oregon. I grew up in Oregon and wanted to come back because of the trees. The trees are really important to me, and in Boulder, Colorado, it's a high desert. They don't have quite the type of forests we have here. So I moved back to Ashland, and then my husband and I moved to Williams. And since I've been in Williams, as you know, the forests here are all around us, and they're gorgeous. And I became really interested in 2007 with the type of forest management that was occurring here. We formed an organization, the Williams Community Forest Project, to actually address the issues of clear cutting and forest management that was essentially destroying our forest. When we formed the Williams Community Forest Project in 2007, we were receiving, and we still are, receiving notice from the Oregon Department of Forestry about the forest operations that were happening in our community. And we notified the community then about any type of forest practice, for instance, if they were doing a selective cut or a clear cut, or if they were spraying. So we felt like our responsibility was to communicate to the community the things that were happening. But we also felt like we had a responsibility for changing what was happening. And those are private forest lands. And we actually, people have a right to do whatever they want on their own private forest lands. So we decided that we needed to develop a model for ecological forest management. The trees actually protect us. They clean our water, they clean our air, the microorganisms in the soil are, really important to our way of life. And so we wanted to show people that you could manage a forest and still have it productive economically for this community. So the Williams Community Forest Project is about developing a forest, a community forest that can sustain the community economically and at the same time sustain the forest. That there's other industry that can happen from that forest, and the forest can stay intact. In February of 2011, a businessman a man that has a business in Idaho purchased the 320 acres, which is a half a section. And that half a section is on a ridge that lies in the heart of Williams. It's between the West Fork and the East Fork creeks. It has the headwaters of Lone Creek on it. It has the headwaters of Goodwin Creek, and then it has a spring that feeds into Sugarloaf Gulch, which the Sugarloaf Gulch feeds into East Fork, and the other two streams feed into the West Fork. And those two streams come together to the Williams Creek. And the Williams Creek is actually has salmon, coho salmon in it, and so it's really an important stream for the life of those salmon. So what happens when this gentleman notified the Oregon Department of Forestry that he was going to log and he's going to clear cut. Well, what happens when you clear cut is you essentially destroy the microorganisms in the soil, and the trees that are no longer there, their roots are not holding water. So the potential is that those streams will dry up, which means that those streams not being available to feed water into the Williams Creek, that creek's going to have less water, will affect the salmon. The other thing that a recent study showed is that whenever you do a logging type of operation like this, it raises the temperature of the water, and that also destroys the salmon habitat. So this water, which feeds our community, feeds our organic farms and our wildlife, is really important to us. And the fact that it sits right in the middle of Williams, it's really one of the only private forests, other than people who have residence, private forest in Williams. There's Josephine County and then this piece of land. So it's been used by the Williams community for recreation, mushroom picking, horseback riding, lots of different activities for many years, for at least 40 years. The land is actually connected to, it's bordered on 3 sides by BLM and then on the 4th side by Josephine County Forest. And the BLM land is, there's a trail called the Grayback Trail that goes through that BLM land. And that Grayback Trail then goes, accesses Grayback Mountain and then the Pacific Crest Trail also. So that land's contiguous with the Kangaroo Roadless area. It's definitely a wildlife corridor. There's been Pacific fishers seen there, and then it has all kinds of other animals like the deer and the cougar and bobcats and a red tree vole, which is considered it's not an endangered species, but it's a species of concern. And so it's an important area for the Williams community because of its connection to the wilderness areas. Unfortunately, the land doesn't have it doesn't have endangered species on it, doesn't have spotted owl, or essentially the spotted owl is the main animal that would potentially be on the land that could offer some protection to the land. And we don't have spotted owl. There's been it's probably spotted owl hunting grounds. We've been able to hear spotted owl there, but we have not found a nest, and that's what would indicate it as land that could be protected because of spotted owl. There is a red tree vole nest on the land, but that's not an endangered species. It's a species only of concern. And the streams on the land are not fish-bearing streams. There's culverts lower in the valley that prevent the salmon from running up those streams. So one of the things that we would do as a part of this community forest is change the culverts so that one day the salmon could spawn in those creeks. When land is clear-cut and you destroy essentially all the vegetation, that the animals that depend on that vegetation, either for food or for nesting, it is no longer available. So the spotted owl needs dense forest for it to nest, and so without, essentially, I mean, we don't have spotted owl on it, but it's hunting ground for the spotted owl. So we wouldn't even have a possibility of sites for those spotted owl. And then all the other animals that you would need that cover of the forest. This piece of land has been held in the arms of the Williams community for a long time. And in approximately 2000, Boise Cascade at that time owned the land and they were going to log it. And the community was very upset and protested against the clear cutting of that land. And they did so almost on a national level. So Boise Cascade, not wanting the publicity, felt like this 320 acres was not worth it to them. So when they sold all their Southern Oregon lands, that was one of the lands that was sold, and it was sold to Forest Capital. And then over the years, it's been owned by Forest Capital and went on the market, and then Forest Capital sold it to Michael Riggs. And so the community has a really strong feeling about this land because it is not only its importance, but emotionally it's been they've protected it. It's they feel like it's a central to their well-being. If I had an audience with Mr. Riggs, I would ask him to sell us this piece of land. It's important to the Williams community to have a community forest. To have a relationship with a community forest is owning a community forest and caring for that community forest is a lot different than having a forest for instance, the BLMs surrounding you. So I'd asked Mr. Riggs if he would give us time to buy this land. The community is behind the community forest and wanting to raise the money to buy that. And I'd ask him to give us a fair market value for the community forest. So Mr. Riggs bought the land in February of 2011 for $900,000, and he's asking $1.5 million. There's 4.5 million board feet on the land. Well, when you consider that if those streams didn't flow and the Williams Creek, the flow decreased in that, well, our water table would also go down, which would affect the wells. And I've had old-timers in the valley tell me that when they've logged upstream, that the Williams Creek almost dried up, that it affects it immensely, how much water is flowing in those streams. So our water in this valley is probably some of the cleanest, in the state of Oregon. And what makes it clean is those trees clean the water. And without the trees, then it definitely affects our water quality. The community of Williams consists of people from all different ways of life. There's loggers and miners and organic farmers and people who have retired here. There's people like myself and Jim who have a little farm. And all these people will be affected by this clear cut. And also they'll be affected by having a community forest. So for instance, loggers actually love usually the forest, and that's why they work in the woods. And those people who have farms, will be affected by having a community forest. Those people who do small diameter utilization or do woodworking will have a relationship with this forest. So the community forest is something that we can all be part of. It's not regulated to a certain part of the community. It's all of the community's forest.